The second presenter is Retno Hendryanti, is a Ph.D. candidate in LCLE. She has 10 years experience teaching English as a foreign language in Indonesia and taught the certification course. Her research interests include computer-assisted language learning, foreign language teacher education, and digital literacies for children and adult language learners.
Thank you very much. So yeah, today I want to share a work in progress that I'm doing right now for my dissertations. I will share with you some of the preliminary findings that I got from my data. So I am, in my research, I tried to explore the impact of an intensive teacher professional developments that LCTL, or less commonly taught language teachers, had in the 2 summers back in 2012 and 2013. So actually what I am doing now is an intersections between 3 fields in the impact studies. In L2 pre-service teacher educations, especially studies related to beliefs, and then impact studies in L2 second language in-service teacher educations, and then also specifically related to the startup related LCTL teacher training programs, which is the kind of trainings that my participants attended in the past. So, built on these 3 fields of research, I then posted questions after being the students of or the trainer myself in 2011, and then work as a GA in 2012 and 2013. Then I have questions actually to what extent did the intensive teacher training program impact the pre and in-service teachers, because in the participants was pre and in-service teachers at that time. To what extent did the program impact their pedagogical beliefs and practice? Yeah. So then I break down the questions into 3 research questions. First, I want to trace or make an inventory of what were the teachers' pedagogical beliefs and practices in the FL teachings and learning prior to or before they came to the training. And then I also wanted to see or to investigate in what ways, if any, if they experience changes in their beliefs and practices. This is although the training was short, about 2 weeks online programs and 3 weeks residential programs, but the training was very intensive. So I would like to see if there is any effects on that. And then the third questions that I have is actually right now, after the trainings and up to now, when they are back to their real teaching situations, how do the teacher participants kind of pedagogical belief and practice can be related to their experiences when they attended teacher trainings during the program. But today I will share some of the findings from the first and the second research questions, and I will not talk a lot about the third one. So for me, there are 2 key concepts that I have to really understand in this study: teacher's belief and teacher's knowledge, because the difficulties in identifying beliefs or teacher beliefs is actually in differentiating between what belief is and what knowledge is. It looks like they are similar, but actually not, but they are actually interrelated to each other. Okay, so I I used I agree with the definitions of teacher's belief that is posed by Kagan and Board. It is propositions about students, classroom, and academic materials to be taught that a teacher consider to be true. So consider to be true is the consider to be true is the key here, because the teachers consider them to be true, but they might not be true, and which are often tested, have a strong evaluative and affective component and provide a basis for actions, and many times they are resistant to change. So I also wanted to know if they are really resistant, the beliefs are really hard to change. My hypothesis from being with the programs for 3 years is that I found that it looks like the beliefs can be changed with a certain ways of trainings that really push the teachers thinking about their own pedagogical practices. And then for the knowledge is, I agree with Calderhead, it is a factual propositions and understanding. So it's based on fact. Based on fact means that it is true according to the facts that supports those propositions. So you may believe on something. Let's say I believe in the fact that using target language as a instructions as language of instruction is effective, but I might I know that using L2 as a language of instructions is effective, and I observe other foreign language teachers using second language as a language of instructions, and it works. But in my own real situations, because of some of the challenges or because of what I experienced in the past, I don't believe that it will work for my own context. So that might happen. Okay. Or actually, I know about some things and I believe that it is true, and then I am willing to do that, and I believe that it also works in my situation. So it also happened too. So as a conceptual framework for my study, I chose the social cultural theory. So I will look into all the data and the phenomena in my studies through the social cultural theory lens. And specifically for the data collections and data analysis, I use the Borg's model of teacher cognitions research. So here, belief is part of the language teacher cognitions, and it is also very close with cannot be clearly separated from knowledge or theories, attitudes, assumptions that happens in the teacher's mind. And then in looking at the phenomena or the belief systems of my participants, I will also connect that with their schooling, the professional development of their being language learning in the past, and then also the professional coursework they're teaching in the past and right now, and then also the contextual factors that include classroom practice. So there are two sides of the where I got the data. The first one is the training itself back in 2012 and 2013. It is a part of a project that is funded by the National Security Agency, and at that time the trained 24 pre-service teachers and in-service teachers, Arabic teachers, Chinese and Turkish teachers, and they had a chance to do teaching practicums in some community centers. So their teaching practicum is not a classroom-based context, which really challenged them also in the practicums. But I also found that it creates a kind of cognitive dissonance to the teachers. And the other place where I gather my data are some schools in and actually not for LCTL classes, but for I went to 4 schools where the 4 teachers that who agreed to help me with the data and who let me observe them. Some classes for Chinese for kindergarten to 3rd grade in Texas, and then I think 2 classes for grade 10 and 12 in a private high schools, and also after school Chinese programs in Ohio, and then public high schools in Oklahoma, and another middle schools in Indiana. The interesting things with these 4 sites is that the types of the schools are this difference. For example, I went to some public schools, but especially here in Oklahoma, the challenge for the teachers are to me is very difficult, because the Chinese teacher there, they have to teach several classes, different level, different grades, but in one class. That is due to the budget that the school district there allocate to the foreign language teaching. That happens not only for Chinese classes but also for French classes. So the teacher here in Oklahoma, where I will focus on data that I collected from her here. She has Chinese 1. Most of her her students were Chinese 1, like about 10 Chinese 1s, and then 4 Chinese 2, and then another 6 Chinese 3. So in one class, in about 100 minutes, she taught them. So she will go to the Chinese 1 for like for 10 or 15 minutes, and then check with Chinese 2 and check with Chinese 3. Sometimes she asks Chinese 3 students to help Chinese 1. So yeah, so that are the situations. And another teachers that I want to focus on today is teachers who is teaching here at the private schools in Ohio. Very different. She teaches in a private Christian schools for boys, and the schools really supports her. And no matter how many students who are interested in Chinese, the schools will let the teachers to have one class for that. So in one class, several of her classes consist of 3 students, and they still have about I think about 45 to 55 minutes of class time. And she also teaches on the weekend and on Friday night. She teaches at the Chinese after-school program, heritage language learner, where she and other Chinese community have several classes and help the kids to read and speak and write in Chinese. So a little bit more about the summer institutes or the training programs. As I told you, we had online programs, and then residential, and then the post-institute programs where people in the programs monitor the immediate effects, or what the teachers can do after they were done with the training. And my research is focused more on the residential parts, where I get most of my data from the workshops and assignments, especially the teaching the reflections. And especially about the reflections that students had to do during the training. They had to go through this 5 stages, but I'm going to focus on the 4th stage, where they individually written reflections, and then instructors provide them the feedback. So this is where I start to do my data analysis, because I'm very familiar with this, and the data is written, it is easier to start with. So, all in all, I have 7 teachers in this research, and I will focus on teacher A and teacher B. So teacher A and teacher B, when they came to the training, they were in-service teachers already. But what is interesting is that teacher A, she doesn't have background in education. She got her bachelor degree in computer science and anthropology. And but difference with teacher B has a degree in the English language literatures, and she was a Ph.D. candidate in CNI. So this is basically what I did for collecting my data. So I collected pre-summer institute data during and post-summer institute data. And these are the areas that I want to focus on the data analysis. So some of the preliminary findings that I can share with you today. I start with the pedagogical knowledge inventory. Why? Because as I told you, that it is very difficult to differentiate between knowledge and beliefs, but it is easier for me to start from the knowledge because knowledge is based on factual propositions. So, and also in other joint research with Dr. Noikes and Vesna, we also did an inventory of the teachers' pedagogical beliefs. So I'm quite familiar with the types of beliefs or the categories of pedagogical knowledge, I mean. So here, from the 2 teachers, I have coded 162 excerpts, and I applied 42 codes, and most of the excerpts or most of the data talk about student engagement. And student engagement here is a big category for that, and I also have subcategory under that, which include, if I can see it here. Oh, here, noticing students' need, and then noticing students' behavior. If you see here, noticing students' behavior is here represented bigger than noticing students' need. That means that they talk more about that. And these are some of the, this is one of the examples of the excerpts when the teachers were talking about student engagement, where she noticed the students' needs. So she said that she is to adjust some of the activities based on students' need in the class, and then she gave examples of what she meant. And then now, with the pedagogical beliefs, because this takes more time to identify, because beliefs should be, to me, it should be represented in a statement. With knowledge, we can use a word or a phrase, but this one, I should think about what they really actually means by that. So, from the 2 teachers, I have 25 excerpts and applied 11 codes, and 8 of them is about Carapul lesson planning. I know Carapul here is like very broad. I need to specify this later. And what is interesting here is that they start to also talk about the student-centered instructions. They believe that, I mean, not believe that, they started to believe that it is that student-centered facilitates foreign language learning, and teachers should be responsive to students' various needs. Now, how they came to this, how they were able to express what they know and what they believe in some of these excerpts. Actually, I also look at progress that they have from written reflection 1 to 6, is they have to write reflections after teaching, and they have to do 6 reflections. So the issues that the instructor highlights a lot is about explaining what they mean, the how, not just telling, not just what is it, like writing a diary, but it has to be clear on what they mean, and then also provide a concrete examples. So if you see here, this is for teacher A and teacher B. So the first 6 is teacher A reflections 1 to 6, and the second 6 reflection is teacher B reflections, and blue is the concrete examples, red is explain. So in the first reflections, they did not explain clearly what they mean, like the how part, and did not provide examples, but they just noticing that this is good, this is bad. But then as they get the feedback, and they also do the practicums, the number of how explanations and concrete examples arise. So I know that the feedback from the instructors is meant to push their thinking in teaching foreign languages, but I wanted to actually know what actually they said in the feedback, and if I categorize them, what they are. So actually they can be categorized into affective and emotionals, and then effects on learners, and the smaller portions here is the subcategories of those 2 kinds of feedback. If you see here, this is the reflection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In the first reflections, they received lots of feedback, but then the number of feedback decreases. This is for teacher A, and this one is for teacher B, and my this is up, and then this is very quick. This is the pedagogical noise from the pre-training. I got this from the interview. They talk a lot about the teaching strategies at that time. And then this one is pedagogical beliefs for pre-training. I also got this from the interview with the 2 teachers. I have so far 15 codes on this related to what they did in the past before they came to the training. So those are the preliminary results or findings that I had, and I can share with you. I don't know where this will go, but I will compare the pre, during, and after, and then at the end I expect to be able to not draw conclusions, but to provide implication and suggestions for the teacher educator. Thank you.